Thank you for watching Vintage Weights PGH. Please support the channel by purchasing apparel through the link in the description or at www.vintageweightspgh.com. Old weights, new gains, and lift history shirts are printed on high-quality next-level t-shirts, and they are available in multiple sizes and color options. Thank you for supporting the channel. Welcome to Vintage Weights PGH. My name is Rob, and these are my favorite plates that I don't know much about. I know a lot about their attributes and characteristics. I've been using them for over a year now, and they've become my go-to vintage deep dish. However, I just can't find anything about their history. In this video, I'm going to go over the clues that tell me a little bit about this and explain what I've done to try to figure out the history of PowerMaster barbell plates. Then I'm going to go into the various characteristics that make these one of my favorite deep dish plates. And lastly, I'll tell you a little bit about my opinion of their value. So stay tuned here on Vintage Weights PGH. Let's start out with the history of these, or the lack thereof. These came from Pittsburgh. Monroeville is just to the east of Pittsburgh, and it says it right here, Monroeville, PA 15146. We have kilograms and pounds. There's a clue that these are more recent than older. I mean, we're still talking 70s, 80s. The other clue I have is that it's a mismatched pair, meaning that this particular pair is identical with one respect, Olympic, and the other one behind me says Olympian. So at some point, PowerMaster changed from putting Olympic on their plates to putting Olympian. That coincides with 1976 and the late 70s when International Olympic Committee, the IOC, started cracking down on the use of the word Olympic. So I would wager that out of the two that I have of these, this one's a little bit older, and that altogether these came around in the 70s. Now, kilogram and pounds, that also gives me that indication that it's probably the 70s that they started putting kilogram on there. These had white lettering originally. There's some remnants of that. I think I'm gonna take a paint pen to the letters and numbers so I can restore that, but the rest of this is original paint. There's some machining on the outside edge, and that goes around this top part, if you will, of the outside edge. Probably some spillover with the casting process. The backs are not machined or lathed for accuracy, and I don't even have to put these on the scale to tell you that the biggest weak point of PowerMaster plates would be their weight tolerance.
60% of the time, it works every time.
There seemingly wasn't one. I used to have two pair of these, and the pair that I don't have anymore, I sold, and it was the heavy pair. It weighed 49 and 51 pounds, the two plates of that pair. When I first got these home, without weighing them, I threw them on the bar, and the 51 pounder was on one side, and I happen to have one of these, and this pair that I kept, even though Olympic and Olympian are mismatched, the weights are not, which I would guess at some point in their history, someone, private owner, paired them up because of their weights. These are 43 pounds each, so not so bad on the pair that I kept. The reason why I know that at a larger scale, they tend to run rampant in terms of weight tolerance is that I've only seen these 3 other times. 2 pair available for sale from a local weight flipper. There's another pair of these that sold on eBay for over $1,000, and we'll come back to that at the end of the video. They sold on eBay, and holy guacamole, they were also heavy. He communicated with me about mine and asked me point blank, like, are yours extremely heavy too? So it doesn't seem coincidental. Out of the 10 plates, to have 4 of them weigh over 45 pounds, that's a pretty big percentage of the known pairs of these. Now, I say known pairs of these because these came about in the 1970s, and I've only ever seen, and they were from Pittsburgh, and that's where I live, if you don't know. PGH stands for Pittsburgh. I've only ever seen these 5 pair. If I'm remembering correctly, the eBay seller might have had a second pair, so we'll call it a dozen. I've only ever seen a dozen of these plates, 6 pairs. That's extremely low. And that leads me to my hunch. My hunch is that this was not a company, Power Master, that sold plates. What I've been researching and trying to find out is if there had ever been a gym called Power Master Gym in Monroeville. I've yet to find anything. And time goes on, it's been over a year now, and I wanted to make a video, so here I am. If I find out anything, or if anyone drops a comment and says, oh yeah, my dad owned that gym, then please know that I'll update and put out an update video or post and let you know. In the meantime, what makes these some of my favorite, if not my favorite, vintage weight plates? Even though these don't have the history of some other companies, they have some nice features. For example, they're a 4-spoke plate, and the spokes don't go at a straight line. They have a very interesting edge to them where they come straight out for about an inch and then they start to slope towards the end. About an inch from the edge, the spoke stops. And then one of my favorite things about these is that there's a nice slope, like curved inner portion here. So when you grasp them, the ends of your fingers are quite comfortable. They are some of my deepest deep dish. York deep dish tend to be the standard for deep dish. They're right at 2 inches. And these come in, the Power Masters, at about 1.85 inches. That is thick. That's thicker than some of the ones hanging behind me. So if I set aside the fact that these are from Pittsburgh and I'm obviously biased, the thing that I like about them is that they're deep and that they have this rounded edge here. The outer edges aren't rounded, but it's quite comfortable to me when I grab these. And when it comes to a deep dish, I want it to be deep. I don't want any of those skinny deep dish. So that puts the Power Masters up there in my opinion. The other thing I really like about them is all the lettering and the full address here with zip code. I just think that's really cool. I like a lot of lettering on a plate. That's why I like my Marcy's, because they have Los Angeles on them. So when a plate has a lot of lettering, all 4 quadrants are filled up, I think that's cool. That ups it in my opinion. They are rare. I like that too. I like that I don't see everyone on Instagram lifting with these. It's kind of cool that out of the dozen of these, I know where most of them have ended up. One last thing to check with these that I'll show you would be on the barbell. So let's go over there. So when it comes to vintage deep dish, a problem that sometimes exists is that older barbells like York split sleeves had a slightly thicker sleeve, and once you put them onto a modern barbell like this Rogue Ohio Power Bar, there's a little too much play. These Power Masters though, that's not the case. Yeah, there's a little bit of play on a modern barbell, but I wouldn't call that loose at all. I'll show you that again and do a little wiggle for you. I mean, that's really not that bad. When it comes to the diameter of them, let me throw a modern plate on for you. So this is a Bells of Steel deep dish, and you'll see that the Power Masters are just slightly less. It's not really noticeable at all. So that's the other reason I like them, is that they go right with my modern plates, no problem. So let's talk value. Just like in other videos where I reviewed vintage weight plates, I'll remind my viewers that there's no official price guide There's no official price for any of these. They're a collectible. They could ebb and flow. Someone might have paid over $1,000 for a pair of these, but I think that's a little too high. And that's my opinion on these. I don't think they're worth over $1,000. They do have their flaws. They're wildly inaccurate when it comes to weight tolerance. And even though they're nice and deep and they feel good in the hand and they have cool spokes and all this lettering, the company, or in my opinion, what I suspect is a gym, the history hasn't been found just yet. If I find a rich history of these, then maybe I'd up my valuation of them. But as of right now, not much is known about them besides that they're rare and they're really nice vintage deep dish. Some vintage collectors don't like it if there's kilograms on a plate. I even had someone interested in these when I was offloading a pair that said, if only it didn't have that kilogram on it. So that brings it down a notch sometimes in the view of some collectors. So then let's just get to it. Where do I value these? I think these are worth, depending on condition, about $400 to $500 a pair. I've never seen change plates, 35s, 25s, things of that nature. A local collector showed me a standard PowerMaster plate that he had. Here's a picture of that. That was pretty cool. And he showed me a 1.5 inch center hole PowerMaster that he had, but those oddities have not been duplicated anywhere else. I've only seen the dozen that I've seen, plus those two oddities. So due to the rarity and how nice these are, even setting aside the weight tolerance, that's why I would value them at $400 to $500. To make a comparison, I don't think these are as valuable as Marcy or BFCO, for example, at this point. Those companies both have a nice rich history to them. Those plates, were historically lifted by people like Arnold Schwarzenegger on Muscle Beach. These, I think, were lifted by some Pittsburgh lifters in Monroeville. That doesn't really stack up. Maybe my opinion will change going forward. We'll see. What do you think? Would you pay that much for these? I'm not selling them, I only have one pair at this point. I already offloaded that other pair, the heavies. Let me know. Drop a comment, and of course, if you shop through my affiliate links or you buy a t-shirt, it really helps the channel. I appreciate you watching. Drop a comment, like, follow, subscribe, all that happy stuff. Old weights, new gains.